Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the AGM. It's a great pleasure that we welcome you today to the annual general meeting of the association. This year, we've embraced innovation and made a decision to host this online in a virtual format. This is going to give us some time during the convention to provide a more inclusive environment for all members and frees up time for other associations and speakers at the in-person conference in Calgary, July 11th through 13th, 2023. And I see, thanks, Bob. I do see the presentation. Thank you. That's great. So let's move to some of the housekeeping. For today's AGM, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping rules. This meeting is, of course, being recorded for our records. All participants have been muted, and I'd ask also the team, perhaps Lindsay and Amy, if you could add folks as they come through, as they join up. All participants have been muted, and of course, the screen displays have been turned off. However, you will have access to the chat function and menu reactions. So if you'd like, you can enter messages now. I can see that Bob has made those messages. Amy is also. So feel free. That's going to be the main way that you're able to interface and vote. So to that, if you could, when the voting comes up, really your response will either be yes or no. And then if you would, just for our benefit, please include the name of the company that you're associated with from a membership standpoint, whether that's as an operator or as an associate. So only operators and associate members can vote on the motions. Each motion will be typed into the chat, and Amy will be doing that for us. And again, as we described, just to repeat, your choice is yes or no, and please just add the name of the company that you represent with your membership. If you've got any questions throughout the meeting, you can also type them into the chat. There is a QA function that'll attempt to monitor. But we'll use that as the main function to correspond. So that covers the AGM procedures. Does anyone have any questions before we begin? I'm going to look to the chat and make sure the team is adding everybody in the lobby. Doesn't look like there are any questions. So let's get started. I'd like to introduce Isan Montford, CBAA's chairman of the board, to start the AGM. Isan, over to you.
Thank you, Anthony. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone, depending on where you are, and welcome. On behalf of the Board of Directors, I would like to welcome new and returning members to the Association's 62nd Annual General Meeting. I am Isan Montford, partner at YYZ Law and chair of the Canadian Business Aviation Association. The purpose of the AGM is to inform members of activities regarding the Board of Directors during the past year, to ratify the actions of the board and present and various financial and other reports required under the bylaws of the association. Note that the items in today's AGM package were previously circulated to members on May 11th. Only members can vote. To reiterate Anthony's comments, please note that only operator and associate members of the association may vote. And we see that there are, how many participants do we have on the call, Anthony?
Total of guests 58 with the presenter. So we look like basically 60 north of 60, and we do have quorum.
Excellent. Just to make sure that we have the sufficient numbers, if you're an associate or an operator member, could you please type yes in the chat so we can make sure that we have the minimum 10 required, and I'll wait to ensure that we've gotten written confirmation of that for proceeding. Anthony, I'm not monitoring the chat, so if you
you definitely know they're coming in. So we're basically going to be at 10. We've seen Stan and James Ellion and Simone, Patrick. So we definitely have the 10.
Terrific.
Ed Ratzlaff as well.
Then we have quorum. As part of the second agenda item, I would like to call for an adoption of the 2022 AGM minutes. Can I have a motion to waive the reading of the 2022 AGM minutes?
And for everyone, you could just enter yes. There's the first from Rod at Cal
We got a
Aviation.
mover and a seconder.
We'll say Simone Roussel.
Terrific. Is there any discussion required? Okay. All in favor, please indicate yes in the chat.
we continue to
Also,
see
just for expediency, if you're opposed, please indicate no so that we can move this meeting along. Anthony's keeping a tally.
all are yes so far. Looks good,
Okay.
Ethan.
All right, so we'll accept that motion as carried. Is there any business arising from the 22 minutes, 22 minutes that anyone would like to raise at this point? All right. Seeing none, I would ask for a motion to adopt the 2022 AGM minutes. Can I call for a mover, please? Anthony,
We'll start with Aidan of McCain Capital.
Okay, and can I call for a seconder, please?
And actually Scott McPherson, Training Port.
Okay, any discussion required? All right, same thing, all in favor, please indicate yes. All opposed, please indicate no.
All in favor so far, Ethan. And I'm glad everybody's using the chat. Hopefully that's convenient.
My annual report. So over the past year, our industry has experienced vigorous growth, although recent signs suggest a possible deceleration. The luxury tax in particular is negatively impacting new aircraft sales. It's affecting jobs and the Canadian manufacturers of these time machines. Furthermore, service inadequacies from government agencies such as the Canada Border Service Agency and Transport Canada continue to pose significant challenges for business aircraft users and operators. On a more positive note, the scarcity of skilled staff members is showing signs of abating. And moreover, in light of the profound impact of COVID-19, we anticipate that the recognition and use of business aviation as a crucial tool for business will remain at levels higher than those pre-pandemic. However, we await the ramifications of increased money supply, leading to unrestrained inflation and subsequent higher interest rates initiated by the Bank of Canada. Our chair of the Audit and Risk Committee will elaborate on this, but I am pleased to report that the association is well positioned to navigate the uncertainties and challenges that lie ahead. During the last meeting, the board engaged in an intensive strategic planning exercise to assess the ongoing function of the association and its purpose. The short version of this exercise is that we've accepted the sustaining importance of continuing to be the voice for business aviation in Canada. Last year, I reported on the reorganization of our committee structure to leverage the diverse skill sets of our board and enhance our accountability to our members. I am delighted to report that this structure is now fully operational and is effectively engaging the board. Soon, the chairs of the committee will share their accomplishments relating to the past year with you. But before yielding the floor, I want to express my deepest gratitude and appreciation to our outgoing board members, Lisa Clark, David Arbin, Ian Darnley. Your diverse perspectives and experience have enriched our strategic discussions and oversight of the association's function. Thank you for your invaluable service to our industry. To Anthony and the team, your relentless advocacy for common sense reforms with government officials and policymakers on behalf of our members does not go unnoticed. Thank you. To our new board members, I eagerly anticipate our work together. A final thought. The unprecedented forest fires raging across Canada underscore the climate emergency facing humankind. In fact, all other policies and service levels will lose relevance if we cannot breathe the air outside. Instead of protesting, such as we witnessed in Geneva during the European Business Aviation Association's annual meeting in May, we must leverage our strength, innovation. While business aviation represents only 0.04% of global carbon emissions, our industry continues to lead. Here, I would like to spotlight a member of our association, AirSprint. Operating twice as many flight hours as the next largest business jet operator in Canada, AirSprint's operations are currently 91% carbon neutral. This achievement results from incremental improvements to their operations and use of high-quality carbon offsets. Airsprint's current projections put them on track to achieve carbon neutral operations by 2025, particularly once SAF becomes more accessible. I urge everyone to consider how our industry can decrease our carbon footprint, and I ask you to share with the association how we can support your efforts. Thank you for your attention. I eagerly await our meeting next month in Calgary. I now invite Andy Nuruddin, Vice Chair of the Board and Chair of the Governance and Nominations Committee, to share a few words, but I just wanted to make sure if Andy got on because we were having some technical challenges.
Easy.
Andy,
I'm
are you
here,
on?
Son. I sure am.
Terrific.
Can you hear me? Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, Ihsan. Thanks, Anthony and team. Great to be with everybody here and have an opportunity to share with you the work of the Governance and Nominations Committee, of which I'm the chair. I'm joined by two valuable board of director members, Paul Carter, Director of Maintenance at Levero, and Alexandre Prévost, who's the Vice President of Worldwide Training at CAE. As the name implies, we have two major roles. One is governance, and the other one, of course, is nominations. Our governance role really includes an annual review of our bylaws and rules, which we start generally after the annual general meeting and the convention. So this July, we will be kind of initiating that review. If there are any requirements for us to re-examine any of the rules that are in the book, then we would gather the information and draft any changes and then kind of circulate them for approval up to and including the members of the board. Our nominations function really is to identify any upcoming board of director openings, make sure that we gather and do some research on members that would be interested in joining the board and would have a positive impact upon the board, conduct the interviews, make our recommendations to the board, and ultimately have that ratified by the membership during the AGM, which we will see here momentarily. We work very closely, obviously, in that function with the HR committee in identifying some of the talent that is needed, making sure that we have regional representation and so on. In terms of what has really been our business in the past few months for 2022 and 23, first and foremost, we have completed a comprehensive rewrite of the CBAA board policy, procedure, and operations manual. It was a bit outdated, and we kind of brought it forward and kind of simplified a few things and made some bylaw changes. And of course, over the past few months, the research, interviewing process, and selection of candidates for the board of directors, which we then carried onwards to the full board, and of which you will hear momentarily. So, in a nutshell, this is sort of the general gist of what we do in the Governance and Nominations Committee. And as I said, we work very closely with the other committees, of which I would like to introduce the chair of the HR committee for her report. It's my pleasure to introduce Lisa Clark with Flight Safety. Lisa, over to you.
Thanks, Andy. As Andy had mentioned, my committee is the Human Resources Committee, which Ihsan Mumford is a part of, who we're all familiar with, as well as Ian Darling, the Director of Business Development for SunWest Aviation. It's a really common question, what exactly does HR do? So I'm going to keep this quite simple. The HR committee plays a critical role in providing counsel, resources, and support to the CEO and his or her team, with a common goal of advocating on behalf of Canadian Business Association. The committee is responsible for succession planning, retention, and development of the CBAA staff and all of its board of directors. Specifically, we're responsible for developing procedures and policies that align with the organization's mission statement. We ensure that the organization's compensation and benefits are competitive and equitable. We oversee the recruitment process by means of updating skills matrix. It's very important to us that there is a diversity of skill set as well as geographical representation on the board. We develop and offer programs to enhance the skill set of board members. This is always a learning curve for everybody, so we band together, and if there are tools out there that can make us better, we endeavor to find them and apply them accordingly. We implement strategies to promote geographical and business diversity and representation across Canada, as previously stated. We are executing and maintaining a well-developed onboarding process. I think we've all taken on something where you kind of get sat in the boardroom, given a laptop and go, here you go, here's your job. We'd like to spend time with new members individually and make sure that they're getting the lay of the land and feel comfortable, and so that they are better able to not only assist us but contribute. We are overseeing the board engagement through committee chairs. Again, it is really important. It's great that we have these committees and that we have these chairs, but we need to make sure that everybody's putting in their share and that everybody's getting engaged and doing the work, as they say. So overall, the HR committee plays a critical role in ensuring the organization has the right people and the right roles, and that they are supported and developed to achieve the CBAA's missions and goals. With that said, the head of our member advocacy committee is Jacqueline Bailey. Jacqueline Bailey is the vice president of Sterling. And Jacqueline, I invite you to say your piece.
Thank you very much, Lisa. I appreciate the introduction. As Lisa said, my name is Jacqueline Bailey, and with my team, I am very pleased to introduce Aidan Costello, who is the Chief Pilot at McCain Capital Incorporated, as well as David Arbon, Aircraft Maintenance Manager, DOM at Canadian Utilities Limited, as well as Manny Diafalo, who is the Director, Operations and Marketing and Human Resources for Select Aero. So we have the pleasure of providing the member advocacy as well, and we meet quarterly for review and dialogue regarding any of the board initiatives. So basically what we do is the board, we oversee and just are able to basically get back to the members to ensure that the board is doing what we feel they should be doing. So the board continues to refine its membership list to establish direct contact with individual aircraft owners regarding value proposition of the association. We have launched a new engagement tool, and it is being used to better track member communications and, of course, engagement. Our in-person chapter meetings have been reinstated. They've been very well attended all across the country, and it's been our pleasure to attend as many as we possibly can. And it's really great to be an advocate for the members, both new and old, and again to be the voice back to the board. The Slack, which I think has been a very effective tool, and it provides great information resources for both operators as well as crews. And then last but not least, the CBAA newsletter, which has been distributed regularly, and it's definitely keeping operators well informed. We're very pleased to be a part of the CBAA board, and we look forward to a successful future. I would like to now introduce Ivano, and Ivano Mosca is the Vice President of Administration at Inotech Exec Air, and he is the Chair and Treasurer, and I would like to introduce Ivano.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me?
You bet, Ivano.
Perfect. So I'm chair of the Audit and Risk Committee, and together with myself is Isabelle Lafont, who's Assistant Vice President of Finance, Aviation Finance at LBC Capital, as well as Jared Williams, who's Chief Operating Officer and Vice President of Operations at AirSprint. So the Audit and Risk Committee is a vital component of the corporate governance, The main objective is to enhance the transparency, integrity, and reliability of financial reporting and risk management practices within the association. The primary role is to provide independent, objective assurance to the board of directors regarding the effectiveness of the association's financial reporting, internal controls, and risk management processes. We have several responsibilities, and there's quite a long list here, so bear with me. First and foremost, it's financial reporting oversight. What does that mean? That means reviewing and providing guidance on the integrity of the financial statements, including the adequacy of accounting policies, financial disclosures, and compliance with relevant laws and regulations. Next being internal control systems. And that means evaluating the adequacy and effectiveness of associations' internal control systems, including financial, operational, and compliance controls to mitigate risk of fraud, errors, and misstatements. Risk management is the next one, and that means monitoring and assessing the association risk management framework, including identifying and prioritizing key risk and evaluating risk mitigation strategies. Next being external audit oversight, and that means overseeing the external audit process, including selection and appointment and compensation of the external auditors. This involves reviewing the auditor's independence, objectivity, and the scope of the audit engagement as a whole. Compliance and legal matters involves reviewing the association's compliance with applicable laws, regulations, and corporate governance standards. This includes monitoring any legal and regulatory issues, investigations, or litigation that may impact the association. Communication and reporting means regularly communicating with management and the external auditors to discuss significant accounting policies, financial reporting issues, audit findings, and risk management matters. The committee also reports its findings and recommendations to the board of directors as a group. Education expertise. It's maintaining a level of expertise within the committee's members to understand the complexity of financial reporting, risk management, and corporate governance. And finally, continuous improvement. It means regularly evaluating and the effectiveness of the committee's processes, procedures, and composition to identify areas of improvement and implement necessary changes. So as I said, a lot of responsibilities, but I think very important role within the overall association. Next, moving on to the Treasury report. Appointed for the third year, auditors McKay Duff LLP have proven to maintain a clear understanding of our internal controls and governance for the Canadian Business Aviation Association financial statements, which comprise a statement of operations, statement of financial position, and statement of cash flows as of December 31st, 2022. The association has continued to maintain a common voice for business aviation and remain focused on the needs of its membership throughout 2022. A tribute to the CAA brand and to the work and positive efforts behind the scenes from the team has resulted in an impressive 5.8% growth in our membership in 2022. The relaunch of the annual convention in Toronto in June, together with local chapter meetings, have resulted in total revenues of in excess of $1.35 million, or a 41% increase over 2021. Our focus on strategic growth initiatives and cost control has resulted in net revenue of $117,000 for the association in 2022. Our balance sheet remains strong as changes in our investment strategies have capitalized on solid returns and significantly reduced risk for the association as a whole. I've enjoyed my first year as treasurer. This is my first year, as many of you probably know. But I would like to thank and congratulate Anthony, Amy, and the team who continue to make a valuable contribution to the sound financial management of the association. I also like to thank Isabel and Jared for their time and efforts as part of the Audit and Risk Committee. I see our association as a solid ambassador, always ready to face the challenges and producing results in the interest of the business aviation community in Canada as a whole. That's it for me. And this part, I'd like to transfer the mic back to Ishan. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ivano. And thank you for that report. Anthony, can you please move to the next slide? I can't see where there we go. Yeah, so I'd like to ask for a motion that the audited financial statements for 2022 be adopted as circulated. Can I call for a mover, please?
And a reminder just for everyone, a yes with your company name. I see Scott McPherson Training Port as the mover, the seconder, Rod Bernard with Cal Aviation.
Is there any need for discussion? Okay. There's no discussion. All in favor, please indicate yes and your company name. All opposed, please indicate no and your company name.
We're seeing a success of Stan with Lavero, Ed with Aerofoil, Scott with Training Port Air Sprint. So we have the necessary votes.
Okay. Great. That motion is carried. All right. And the next is I would ask for a motion to approve the appointment of McKay Duff LLP as auditors for the fiscal year ending in December 31st, 2023. Can I call for a mover, please?
Mover was Ed Ratzleff, yes, Aerofoil, and then Simon Roussel with ACAS, seconder.
Seconder, great. Any requirement for discussion?
Nothing in the QA or nothing in the chat. Magna Ken has also moved the motion forward.
All in favor, please indicate yes in your company name. All opposed, please indicate no in your company name.
We see a series of yeses for our jet partners, McCain Foods, Sterling Aviation, Lavero. Looks good.
All right, seeing no opposition, that motion is carried. Next, we would ask, we need to ratify the board nominations. The following is a list of directors agreeing to serve a 1-year extending term to June 2024. Yours truly, Hassan Monfred. I would ask for a motion that the list of directors put forward by the nominating committee be accepted for another 1-year term. Can I call for a mover, please?
The mover, Simon Roussel, ACAS.
And can I
Scott
call
McPherson,
for
Training
seconder?
Port was your seconder.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay. Seeing no discussion, all in favor, please indicate yes. All opposed, please indicate no, and note your company name, please.
We've had a series of yeses come through while we've been chatting, Isan, but everything from Lux FBO, McCain Capital, Aura Jet Partners, Air Sprint, Training Port, Aerofoil. The motion goes forward.
Okay, thank you. That motion is carried. All right, then the following is a list of directors agreeing to serve a further 2-year term to June 2025. Included there is Aidan Costello with McCain Capital Corporation, Isabelle Lafond with LBC Capital, and Andy Nuruddin, retired from Bombardier. I ask for a motion that the list of directors put forth by the nominating committee be accepted for another 2-year term.
We have the mover of Rod Bernard, Cal
Awesome.
Aviation. Seconder
And
was
this-
Simon Roussel with ACAS.
Okay, if there's no discussion, any discussion requirement, please state now. Otherwise, I will ask for the call to vote. All in favor, please indicate yes. All opposed, please indicate no, and note your company name.
See a series of yeses, Isan, McCain Capital, Bank of Nova Scotia, Air Sprint, NovaJet. A good list, Representative.
All right, that motion is carried. And then finally, the following list of persons nominated by the CBAA Nominations Committee for the Board of Directors to serve a 2-year term to June of 2025 includes Sarah Dan with NAV Canada, Matthew Johnson with Fast Air, and Konstantin Sakos with Chartwright. So I would ask a motion to approve the list of persons being nominated by the CBA Nominations Committee. And can I get a mover, please?
The mover was Ken Bacchus with Magna.
Magna.
The seconder
And,
was from Sky Service, Hart.
okay, Maitland, great. Any discussion required? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please indicate yes. All opposed, please indicate no, and note your company name.
See a series of yeses from Air Sprint, Cal Aviation, Lavero, Bank of Nova Scotia, NovaJet, ACAS.
Terrific, that motion is carried. All right, and ratification of the Board of Directors' decisions. Board members, please note that we cannot vote, so other members can vote. So I'd call for a motion that the decisions of the Board of Directors since the last AGM be ratified. Can I call for a mover, please? And a seconder.
The mover was James Illian, Air Sprint. Seconder was BC Campbell, Bank of Nova Scotia.
Right. And any discussion required? Okay, I see no discussion. All in favor, please indicate yes. All opposed, please indicate no.
Received a series of yeses. Scott from Training Port, McCain Foods, Aerofoil, Air Sprint, Cal Aviation, Bank of Nova Scotia. All in favor.
Awesome. That motion is carried. Let's scroll down to I guess the next slide. There we go. Yeah, great. All right. In recognition of their service, we are awarding Lisa Clark, Ian Darnley, and David Arbon with an appreciation award, all who will be completing their term at the conclusion of this meeting, as I noted in my chairman's address. Dedicated volunteers like Lisa, Ian, and David make the CBAA what it is today. We appreciate all that you've done for the association over the years. Thank you. To those of you here today who may be interested in joining the board in 2024, be sure to email member support to get further information. It's always a competitive process, and we really do attract some of the best and brightest in our industry. All right. So, Anthony, okay, is there any new business that needs to be addressed? There's 2 items left to close off this 2023 AGM.
We're receiving just to note, some great congratulations from folks on the chat. So that's great, but it looks like no other new business is being raised, Nissan.
I'm hopeful that all 3 of those individuals will be at the convention. So if you'd like to take them to the bar and buy them a drink, you can do that there. Okay, and then finally, I would like a motion to terminate the meeting. Can I call for a mover, please? Right, Scott McPherson at Training Port, and seconded by
Aiden at McCain Capital.
McCain Capital. Great. Is there any discussion? No. All right. All in favor, please indicate yes. All opposed, please indicate no. This is for the motion to terminate the meeting.
Seen a series of yeses from Charles at Future,
Okay.
Cal Aviation, Aerofoil, Training Port, Jetport, McCain Foods.
All right, that motion is carried. All right, this concludes the 2023 CBAA AGM. Anthony, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, appreciate everyone joining us. And I thought to take the opportunity here with the time that we have left. It's likely going to certainly end before the scheduled time of 2:30. But I couldn't miss the opportunity to provide you a bit of an update, specifically a government update, what's happening there. Talk about luxury tax, talk about the airports, the regulations, and a quick note of thanks. So I want to start there. And also, thank you for using the chat function. You know, this is the business of the association. And hopefully in this format, we allow then more time at the convention. And as a reminder, again, July 11 through 13 in Calgary, it's going to be a fantastic opportunity to connect again. And you're going to hear through here that my call to action is really, to summarize it, if we're not going to fight for this industry, who will? And this is one opportunity for us to get together and talk about the issues that matter. So let's talk a little bit about this government update. Now, I like to kind of think that this government relations or sort of government update can be best described with these 3 images. You yell, it takes time, and it takes pressure. That's really how it functions. And I want to kind of expand a little bit in this area. But I want to do that by telling you a story. You remember back in COVID in those days, let's rewind the tape all the way to the idea of the 4 majors. Remember that they were only clearing aircraft, international or otherwise, into set airports. There was a period where many provinces, many cities within those provinces, and subsequently the airports themselves were not included. We had, in the instance of the East Coast in New Brunswick, we had no choices. Even as the program progressed, there was letters that the association sent, conversations that we had with PHAC and TC and CBSA and everything. And I used a line, you could start with the letter B and talk about the airports that still needed to be addressed: Boundary Bay, Buttonville, and Bathurst. We continue to press for business aviation. We had there are members on this call that received the opportunity during those four majors, the opportunity to operate their aircraft for essential purposes, which we developed a template, stick-handled through 3 levels of government: Transport Canada, Public Health, and CBSA. And if you can imagine, it's sort of like the nuclear silo. All 3 keys had to turn at the same time in order for that approval to be provided. The first to get that template. Once it started with one member, it started to expand beyond there. But what's interesting is I tell this story because even with the efforts, not just of the CBAA, I mean, imagine, if you will, just take a step back and think all of the other, let's say, national associations, whether it's the National Airlines Council, ATAC, HAC, COPA, everybody was pushing for that. Then there was industry, the airlines themselves, business aviation operators. We were all advocating in independent channels. And yet the government still, in this case, cabinet ministers in the Liberal government that represent the province, let's say, of New Brunswick in this case, because I highlight this one, even our collective effort couldn't overturn the kind of policy that they were putting forward. So when you go back to this image, you're yelling, it takes time, and it takes pressure. This is the secret to trying to find and influence change. And it's a comical way of viewing it, but it's an important one. And that issue of airports and COVID can be applied in so many other domains, and we'll kind of touch on them with that. We continue to be super busy with the government. From meeting with MPs one-on-one to appearing at, say, the Transport Committee, writing and publishing articles in the Hill Times, which is a government publication in Ottawa, all in an effort to advance our interests collectively as an industry. Really, it's about keeping that pressure up. So in terms of practical updates, I want to kind of get you a view of what's happening with the government. It's expected that next week, summer recess, little vacation time, let's say, for these folks. With the political climate as polarized as ever, many MPs are looking to just leave Ottawa as soon as they can. They're going to return back to their ridings. You're going to see, we developed some tools here to activate your voice. Through our new website, we have a tool that enables, if we want to direct, let's say, a letter to the Minister of Transport or to NAV Canada or to an airport authority, we're making it easy for you to gather the content, customize it as you see fit to manage or to fit your operation, but then basically one click, send that across. We get your notice, they get your concern, and collectively, this is how I end up getting calls from staffers on the Hill here that say, hey, listen, MP so-and-so would like to meet because of a member inquiry. And so, believe it or not, your words matter. Whether it's an email, whether it's a phone call, being engaged that way, if you're concerned with an issue, you need to step up to write those letters. Work with us to advance your cause. That is a way to get things heard. Our lobby efforts will continue in partnership with H&K. We'll continue to educate, influence, and find those points of pressure in order to influence our outcomes. A couple highlights before I move off to the idea of luxury tax. This Liberal NDP confidence in supply agreement remains in force. It's an issue. We haven't dealt with that in this kind of, especially the longevity, with all the concerns around foreign interference and otherwise. Somehow this agreement still stands. We expect also to keep an eye on a cabinet shuffle. Typically what happens over this sort of summer recess is, in this case, the Prime Minister has the opportunity to realign the cabinet. Now, what this ultimately means is that the investment of time and energy that you've had with various members, various staffers, that may or may not change. Maybe there's a new transport minister, maybe not. Maybe there's a new et cetera. You can understand how that then all of a sudden resets the table, because now you've got to go back and get into that education, get into that influence campaign. Again, you're yelling, it takes time, and it takes a lot of pressure. But that's what we do in your voice for business aviation here in Ottawa and in the provincial locations across the country. So let's talk a little bit about luxury tax. But to do this, I want to start with a bit of a quiz. So I'm going to engage you again in the chat function, and I'm going to ask you two questions. And normally I would use like aha slides here, but just to make sure that it was nice and clean and easy, let's just use the chat function. So if you're ready, the first question is this. From Finance Canada, what is the range of sales loss in millions of dollars that the luxury tax will have on aircraft sales? I'm asking you this question. Please take a moment to go into the chat. Again, a range. So from the lower band to the upper band in millions of dollars. What do you think the number is that Finance Canada thinks luxury tax will cost aircraft sales in Canada? Let's see if I can monitor your chat. I'd like to see a couple answers in to make sure that that everybody's there and watching. Okay, great. Patrick, thank you. 30 to 60. I'll get a couple more, and then 50 million, Dave. So great. Maybe let's say that's the median. Dave from Aurora Jet Partners. Brian Trainingport, 50 to 100 million. Perfect. Okay. Get maybe one or two more. Oh, our guest, 100 to 250. Okay, 75 to 90. Great. So interesting answers. Would it surprise you to know that the Finance Canada report suggests that the aircraft sales loss, the band would be $13.5 million to $28.7 million. So the question is, who's wrong? Is it industry in the chat, or is it Finance Canada? And I think we'd all agree. It's pretty clear that Finance Canada, I mean, that's one airplane. We already know that you on this call, I mean, ESAN's 540 million. We can talk about manufacturers, whether it's Bombardier, Gulfstream, Dassault, Textron, Pilatus. We know that decisions are being made, and the Finance Canada report suggests that 13.5 to 28.7 is the sales loss in millions of dollars. That's what they think. The second question, Stan, are we surprised? Unfortunately, not. But I want to ask a second question, because this one's about job losses. So it's going to be the same sort of thing. Regarding the aerospace sector and this luxury tax, what are the job losses that you would expect? Let's say maybe it's in thousands or in hundreds, but again, lower band, upper band, jobs lost due to luxury tax on aircraft. If we could enter some of those numbers in, and hopefully we get the same sort of thing. And Jeff is right. I mean, it does influence, as you are all contemplating what job losses we expect to have. It does drive Canadians to make pre-owned options. We know the secondary effects of perhaps even safety and efficiency, right? I mean, not buying a newer aircraft to cycle through loses the advantage to take complete advantage of the technology that's improving, the hardware that's including safety. Dave Smith, shortages exist now. David Arbin, more than 2,000. So let's see, a couple more answers. I just want to kind of get your feel for job losses due to the luxury tax that Finance Canada is thinking. 5 to 7,000 by Rod. Perfect. Okay. I'll get one more answer, and then I'll give you what they think. Less than 100. Okay, perfect. Well, the answer, and I'll give you two of them just to be fair, because they talk about GDP, and the point is that you'll be shocked as well. Finance Canada said that between 10 to 20 and 20 to 45 for the entirety of the business aviation industry, the impact on job losses due to the luxury tax on aircraft. This is what Finance Canada published in their report. James, they must think none. That's basically what it is. So let's talk a little bit about luxury tax. Let's rewind the tape. So remember that election 43 was 2019. Luxury tax came up in election 43. The CBAA was successful in pushing that away. Election 44 rolls around. That's 2021. Well, this time they bring it back up again. This time they had more, let's say, energy behind it. The Prime Minister, the cabinet. I certainly recall being in meetings in Ottawa here and being told by a senior finance official that, Anthony, do you know how well luxury tax polls with Canadians? This is where the association and its coalition of partners, I need to call out folks like AIAC, COPA, HAC, the manufacturers, you as individual operators, we all came together in various ways. As I talked to you about in that story about government relations, remember, you're yelling, it takes time, and it takes a lot of pressure. We were all sitting there advocating, talking about just how silly this idea is. When our industry, you, can come up with numbers that we feel are more realistic, this feeds into the process of 2021. So as this coalition, and we contributed, of course, we influenced the parliamentary budget officer. We said, listen, we need to do a study. Parliamentary budget officer comes out and says, we should do a study for aircraft and it should be separate from the luxury tax. We take that information to the finance committee. We get unanimous consent, a motion put forward by an NDP member, unanimous consent that yes, aircraft should be separate and studied. What happens? The government rolls out luxury tax on the day they said they would roll the luxury tax out, September 1st. Now, we did achieve, so with that in mind, we did achieve some, let's say, widening lanes. This is a theme that I use. We got 90%, an exclusion for use of 90%. So the Finance Canada report even kind of contemplates that there are private corporate operators. And this is kind of where we get into, managing people's expectation in our membership, especially on the operator side, when there are three categories. We've got our large management companies, you know who they are. We've got our corporate operators, you know the big names. And we've got our individual owners that happen to have their aircraft. Well, what good looks like for those different categories changes. And in the case of getting a 90% exclusion, well, maybe that principally benefits the pure play corporate big name operators that you know. Is there work to go? Absolutely. Is it done? Absolutely not. We continue to advocate, not only, I just as recently as last week, meeting with conservative critics, MP Hallen, talking about the impact of luxury tax. We continue through the Committee of Scrutiny Regulations to advocate that this issue needs to be looked at, and we have buy-in there. So we continue this fight on luxury tax. And I think the hardest thing to stress is that, there is both the short-term game, there's also the long-term game. And I think when you go back to that slide of government updates, this is the message. We need to be vocal. It takes time and we need pressure. We're going to engage you in this effort. We are going to continue to widen the lane on luxury tax. This is not a completed issue. So let's go to, I think, the next opportunity. Now, it starts with a sign that says, construction ahead, please be alert. This is about airports. But let's just focus on the four majors. And many of you, and I see both BC Campbell and Simone, know very well the early days of the CBAA's efforts to influence airports as they continue down this journey of what they believe are controls and measures through airport collaborative decision-making to manage traffic at their airports. Now let's rewind the tape again because it's important to kind of highlight. I actually remember one of the first activities that I undertook. It was actually the VP of sales where I coordinated with the Toronto Airport Committee to push back on and craft what the GTA would ultimately come out with, say, version 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe now we're up to maybe 20 of the program. If you recall in Montreal, the efforts that we undertook there, by early days, Scott McPherson, I'm looking at your chat, 1958. I wish I was engaged in Toronto or Malton Airport, whatever it's called in 1958. But I had to take a pause there. No, we're thinking just maybe 2018, so recent news. In Montreal, think back to the restrictions that we had there, a complete ban on business aviation. If you recall, not only writing letters to their board, we played a NOTAM game. We would receive a NOTAM that would say, hey, as of today, because based on the weather, business aviation can move. Simone knows the battle well. Exec Air knows the battle well with Patrick. We continue to craft the policy. Is it perfect? No. Every day we are trying to advocate and make sure that these programs are effective. What's next? I think we need to start talking about Vancouver. We know that the construction, you've probably seen it. I've talked about it at our chapter meetings. 2024 brings about certainly what YVR would say is very necessary. The north runway needs to be taken down for construction efforts. We have, in the early days, advocated that, hey, why take the entire runway down? Why not take a portion of it, et cetera? Apparently, really the subsurface of the airport needs that kind of work, and therefore they need to take the runway down. Now, how does this impact us? Well, YVR is planning that by October 29th, all aircraft utilizing YVR's runway system will require a slot. We have stood up a YVR, let's call it GABA. That's what we've named it with the YVR, General Aviation, Business Aviation. But principally, and I've reached out to a few of the FBOs, and some of you have reached out as well, we are going to continue to work together. We've already made some really good progress with YVR. I would tell you that maybe one of the strengths of having gone through both Toronto and Montreal before, there's an opportunity not only to leverage the learnings that we have, it remains critical that FBOs, based operators, they have early and preferential access. I mean, we have to find a way. We're all trying to use the pavement. The problem comes with an airport that says maybe they're trying to manage the terminal. Obviously, we don't care about the terminal, but we need to interface with the pavement that's there. And so building these systems needs to reflect the businesses, the investments that our industry has made. You as tenants, perhaps you're representing an FBO at any one of the four majors, let's say. Maybe you're a based operator. Maybe you're a transient operator to that airport. You interface with a business, the FBO. And so our work continues to craft a program that reflects the reality of business aviation at these airports. So YVR, near the end of this month, will be the start of our YVR GABA meeting. So if you're an operator interested, an associate member, maybe an FBO, we will be in contact to set up these initial meetings. We will smooth this program out, but we've got to find a place. I see my video has stopped working. I will, and what a look that that is. Let's see if it'll start back up. I know what the issue is, but I'll probably just keep going and reset it here in just a second. So YVR is definitely going to be an opportunity for us. End of June will be the chance for us to first start that GABA conference. We will find and craft with YVR a program that works, and we'll continue to communicate both with YVR and the GABA community to develop a system that's based on operational new LinkedIn profile. Thank you, James. And literally, if you knew what I had to do, I have to go unplug a little device and plug it back in. It'll be back in a second. So I'm sure I could probably do that. But hey, this is the fun of it. So that's YVR. I do need to talk also about Calgary. So perhaps it's viewed as alarming, but we also need to be in communication with Calgary. I have a meeting tomorrow with them, and subsequently conversation probably planned with members that you'll see a very similar Teams or webinar format to invite you as Calgary-based operators, FBOs, and transient operators to the airport. It's very clear that there has been an effort by the four majors to coordinate their activities. And this means even the software tool, PDC, the reservation system, its use, they're very clearly aligned in that way. So if you want to be part of the solution, please consider joining these groups, either in Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, or Montreal. And if you'll give me just 10 seconds, I will get my camera working. See, I knew I could get it working. Perfect. Well, at least I got four laughs with James' comment. And it looks like it's kind of slow, but let's just see as it kind of catches up. You know, technology, what can you do with it? What can you do without it? I want to cover off the regulatory initiatives. Now, this slide is meant to serve as an eyesore. You're not going to be able to see it all. But I want to highlight here that under Bob's leadership, we are advocating not just on the issues that we as an industry have identified so far. Talk about the fatigue risk management system, the pilot project that we're undertaking with some operators. This, let's say, compressed view captures what Transport Canada has put out as regulatory initiatives that they're focused on from 2023 to 2025. So what I'm trying to do with this slide is to show you that we are looking at and examining what is coming, what our concerns are that maybe aren't aligned with what they identify as their projects and activities, but understanding the impact with and on business aviation. We've reached out to members. So if you're seeing something that's coming out there and you want to get connected, either it's an email to me, it's an email to Bob, it's an email to member support. We can get you either the level of clarification you're looking for or some insight. And in times, we reach out to you directly to hear the stories so that we can better communicate the impact of whatever decision is being decided, in this case with Transport Canada or broadly what's happening in Ottawa. Oh, and Bob's comment in the end, all the other projects need to keep track of standards, ACs, position papers, et cetera. So at the highest level, under Bob's leadership here on the regulatory affairs side, the CBAA is very much looking at what is impacting Canadian operators, you, both at home and abroad, and through our partnerships with folks like IBAC. We look to see what global impacts our operations experience across the country and across the globe. So I want to move to a thank you. And I want to move to a thank you for Team CBAA for both present and past. On behalf of you, our members, I want to publicly recognize some individuals. First, I want to thank Amy O'Connor, Lindsay Burnt, and Robert or Bob Sinsen. Every day, these folks come to work for you, and I very much appreciate their support.